In this video, I'm going to show you how to remove and replace your parking shoes on a RAV4 with rear disc brakes located inside the rear hub. 21mm socket, and we are going to remove the tire. Now we can pull the tire off. So we're going to remove our caliper, but I'm going to do it just from the bracket to the knuckle, leave the caliper intact. So with a 17mm socket, I'm going to break these mounting bolts free. Let's get the bottom one before that completely comes out. Let's get that bottom one out the rest of the way. I'm going to use a caliper hook and I'm going to hang that, set it out of the way. So now we can remove our rotor and see those parking brake shoes. So you notice how this tool has this hook on it, opening on both ends. That is for brake springs. Now, if I put it in like that and installed it, it would be clockwise. Counterclockwise is to remove the spring. See how it pulls it right off the hook? And there it is. We're going to do the same over here. Move that hub so the opening is right there. Put the tool right in there. And turn count. This one would be clockwise. We're going to follow right down to where the springs are that hold it in place. I'm going to get a pair of long needle nose, and I'm going to push and turn that pivot so that it's in the open slot. Just like that. Take those out. And then there's one on the other side at 9 o'clock. Now the other side top spring fell out, but what I always do no matter what, I've been doing this for a long time, I still set up the springs the way they were set up in the brakes away from the car. So I'll take that top spring and I'm going to set it at right around 1, 2 o'clock. And I'm going to take the one on this side, set it the same, around 11. Now I'm going to take my center spring out. I do have new hardware, but it's just a good habit so you don't say, oh man, which spring went where again? Because they are different designs. Now we can take this top shoe away from the top notch. So do the same on the back and let that down. Now you'll notice the adjuster and the spring that holds the bottom shoes together. Good way to get that out. Just turn it just like that. Take the adjuster out, making sure you know what side you just took off. So the threaded side is to the rear of the vehicle, and that does matter because this will spin and adjust the parking brakes, and if it's in reverse, it'll de-adjust the parking brake, so it will never be properly adjusted. So pay attention to how that adjuster comes out. We know that the studded thread is to the rear of the car. And this spring goes on the bottom. So now on this particular make and model, there is not that typical horseshoe clip that you see going on there. There's nothing. You're just going to pull that off and clean it up after. One other thing you want to take out and keep an eye on how it came out is this actual upper adjuster. It's a spacer, and you'll see one side's wider than the other, and one single slot here. This is this way for a particular reason, and you want it on the rear shoe, facing the rear shoe, and the hub. See how the cutout for the axle? It's got that roundness to it. So that's the way it would go in. Particularly wider opening goes to the rear. We'll set that aside. We're going to remove the pins because they're old and rusty, and I am replacing the hardware. So they just slide out through the back of the backing plate. And we'll just measure them, make sure they're the same length, there was no front or back, set them aside. So now we're going to clean up that backing plate. I'm just going to take a little wire wheel brush, clean off the marking high points. You can't miss the high points, they're like little divots that the shoes will ride on. And I'm cleaning them up because I'm going to put a little bit of caliper grease on them for the rubbing part. Just get a little brake parts cleaner, clean it up. I have my catch basin below. Okay, we'll let that dry a little bit. Make sure it's dry. We're going to take some caliper grease, like I said. I'm just going to brush it on those high points. It just stops the shoes from being metal to metal against the backing plate. It could make a horrific noise. Plus it will wear that backing plate out. Then you'll have to replace that. We're going to put our adjuster arm in. Remember when we took it out, we put the Y part towards the rear of the car. I'm just going to let it sit right in there, right on that little hub. Now I'm going to take my new adjuster. 2 came in the package. So like I talked about earlier, you have different thread turning. You have clockwise and counterclockwise. And that's for the meaning of whether the shoe gets adjusted or de-adjusted. So I matched up the new adjuster to the one that I took out on this side. And I'm going to put some never sees on the threads part, so that way we'll have no problem in the future. Just take a little spray can, or you can have the paste. And I like to put it on the inside where the threads are. Now I can thread that back in. Bring it in as far as you need to. Take some of that excess. And I'm going to put that on this side. Spray a little bit in there. Because the head of that adjuster needs to spin freely too. Make sure it never seizes up on anyone. Now that's ready to go when we get to that point. So when it comes to parking brakes, unlike regular drum brakes, there is no primary or secondary brake shoe. That usually means one shoe is longer than the other, but these are all equal, so there's no front or back. So we're going to just grab one of them and get ready to put that e-brake pivot on, and I'm going to, right where it sits in there, I'm going to put some nice caliper grease to get that to stay spinning freely. I'm going to rest it the best I can while I get the rest of the hardware. Well, I'm going to have to hold it there and then take the pin and run the pin through the back. You can't miss the hole, it's right there, right by the actual caliper bracket mounting. Like that. Put your finger on it if you can. There we go. Now we have to put this spring and collapse it and turn that at the same time. Turn that just a little bit. I pried a pry bar in there to hold that pin, so now I can concentrate on the outside here and hope that I can get it by pushing down and spinning. Maybe give it a little bit of help. So now I'm going to go from that shoe and work my way around to the top to make it the easiest as possible. So remember, the threaded part goes towards the rear, and you're going to line it up in the shoe on that flat spot just like that, and the same with the other shoe. But before we do that, I want to put the spring in. Remember, the opening, the long part of that spring is going to go by that star adjuster. So this back part of the spring does not go in this hole, it goes in the slot. Now you grab your other shoe and the adjuster. First thing I do is I hook the spring up, put the lever in there. Now we just give it a pull and line it up. There we go. Go ahead and adjust that out. Because you want that spring to stay taut. Once again, let's line that hub up so it's less troublesome with the cutout right there. We're going to put this side, front side pin in through the hole in the backing plate and right through the shoe, like that. We'll get the spring, line that up. Hold it there. So now we can put our top springs on. You had the two different types, and I laid them out. So the weirdest looking one, if you want to call it that, goes to the rear. Doesn't matter which order you put them in, because they don't go over each other like some cars. Put it in that hole front there, and then I'm just going to grab my tool. You can use a screwdriver. I've seen people use many things. And it will fall right in. Just like that. Do the same to the back. Line it up in that hole. Grab your screwdriver or the brake tool. Pull it over that. So now it's time to clean up the hub. I'm going to put my catch basin below it. First I'm going to clean off the grease that somebody added already in the last brake job. Even if yours is just rust, I recommend doing this just to get the rust loosened up, because you want a clean surface. Then take a wire brush and just start brushing it. The idea is to get the high-rise chunks, or if of anything, off, because you don't want that hub sitting unevenly. And the most notorious spot is right here, the center part of that hub. And if you need to, you can always just grab your hand, feel for any rust spots. We're lucky this is pretty clean, and I'll take it. And I'll just clean it off again. Let that dry. So I'm going to spray the hub with some copper never seize. You can use the silver if you wish. It just stops that from rusting again. So now we can put our rotor back on. Make sure it sits. Make sure you can turn it. That's perfect. We'll adjust the parking shoes through this adjustment window once the caliper is back on. Now we can install our caliper. Take it off the hook. Line up the bracket. We have the two mounting bolts back here. Caliper bracket to knuckle. Starting by hand. That's a 17mm socket. And take that and snug it up. Let's get the bottom one. And we're going to torque that to 65 foot-pounds. That's the little door for the adjustment for the parking brakes. Take it out now so you don't forget, and put it with the parts so you remember to put it back on. If not, water will get in there and it makes a mess out of the hub and the parking shoes, and that's not exactly the goal, is it? We're going to take a flathead screwdriver or an adjustment tool. We're going to go right in there and we're going to adjust those parking brakes, the shoes that go inside this hat. And nice quick way is you want a nice drag. So at 6 o'clock is where the star adjuster is, and you're going to turn it. You'll feel it getting tighter or looser. If it's looser, then go the opposite way. And you want it to have a nice slow drag. Not too tight, just right. Then you're going to put your boot back on. Now water won't get in there. And start your lug nuts. And now we'll take our 21mm socket. We're not going to really reef on them, we're just going to bottom it out because we're going to torque it to the factory specs. That one right there, the threads are stretched a little bit. That's from over tightening. We'll torque our wheels. That's with the 21mm socket, and the wheel torque is 76 foot-pounds. I'm going to do it in a crisscross or star pattern. Double check. After finishing this installation, it's important to have an alignment done on your vehicle. When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.